All right, we are live. This is MC1 Gamer bringing you another Unlocking Age of Sigmar. This time we're going to do a breakdown of some Skaven lists. And, we have the Pied Piper of the Warhammer community. Probably the most interested, other than, I guess maybe Skaven AZ might be a competitor in this, but probably the most interested and most fanatical Skaven player that I know, at least, from the Warhammer community, Vince Venturella.
Thank you, sir. Absolutely. I will give that honor to Skaven and AZ, as he was bold enough to put it in his name. But obviously, since we each of us has focused our rats in a different way. So that's all right. We carry our verminous hordes forward in our own style. That's
right. But when it comes to Age of Sigmar, I'd put you at the top, because Skaven is still, he's in the 9th age right now, immersed in that, and I'm glad to see that he's playing. That makes me feel good that he's back in the community, and I wanted to mention him because I know he's a big Skaven player, and I hope that maybe at some point he gives Age of Sigmar another try, especially with the new match play, and comes back into the fold, because we miss him in the Age of Sigmar viewership.
I'm sure I'm just happy to have more content from the man. I'll take him. He can just read the phone book. I'd be okay.
I feel the same way about that with Lord Tremendous. Same thing. Although I don't know if Lord Tremendous has ever played Skaven, but we're going to talk about Skaven today. Now, we are there's some things that I think I want to go put out there before we actually get into it, and then I want to get your opinion and your input. I've done an unlocking series, and this is kind of like the Unlocking 2.0. And the unlocking series used to be, the initial impetus behind that was to kind of be the bridge between people who are coming from 8th edition and moving over to Age of Sigmar, and how can you utilize the armies from the old compendiums and the way you used to play and use them in Age of Sigmar. But we're in a whole new world. It's a year down the road, and the General's Handbook is just released this week. We've had a lot of leaks, so we know what the points are. And we're just starting to see the releasing of the battle tomes, which give all these new things that are specific factions. So there's going to be a lot of stuff that's going to be very relevant to Skaven, but it's going to be even different than what the last time we did an analysis. I'd like to get your perspective on how things have evolved with Skaven in Age of Sigmar, because we've got players that may be returning that used to play 8th edition, and we've got a lot of new players. I just want to put my little stamp on this. I very much respect Skaven. I remember the first time I played them, I didn't know much about them, and I got my butt handed to me. They are, if you don't know what you're dealing with, they will surprise and destroy you. They will wreck your game. You will lose horribly. You need to be prepared. This is an army that needs to be respected and prepared for. They play very, very interestingly and very different. Tell me what your perspective is on that.
Yeah, I mean, that's always been their special thing, right? Their special thing is they break the rules. That's what's cool about them. They're the dark version of the Empire originally, right? That was their sort of impetus. They had all the same tricks, just in reverse, and using evil magical stones to power everything. And they're very flavorful. Like, what I love about them, what got me into them originally, was the sort of idea of the various clans and how weird they are, and the fact that that life is cheap and they don't care about things. And even now, going forward, throughout every edition that I've played them, and I've played them since 5th edition, okay, they've always broken the rules. That's their thing, and they still do that quite a bit. Now, to be more fair, in the Age of Sigmar, honestly, it's a very exception-based system. By that, what I mean is everybody breaks rules, right? The game says you can't run and charge. Plenty of people have written on their war scrolls, you can run and charge, right? So it's all exception-based design. That being said, the Skaven do it a lot, and what's great is they do it while committing suicide. And they did a great job in this edition of bringing that forward, where the risk is such that you will always pull the trigger, and that means about one of your things will fail spectacularly every round at minimum. So it's always a good time.
Yeah, the way I look at them is they're one of the horde armies where when best played, you're embracing that concept. Now, in the original release of Age of Sigmar, a lot of things were different than what we're seeing with match play. Obviously, open play is a far different animal. There was no real restrictions. There was a lot of artificial restrictions instituted with comp packages or just number of wounds or whatever the scenario was. With match play, we do have a lot of organized structure now. And I think that where a lot of the Skaven benefits and a lot of other armies that may have, whether they're wonky rules or whatnot, but especially the Horde armies that kind of relied on larger units and to either tar pit or do whatever, they kind of got hurt a little bit in open play because it didn't matter. There was no relevancy to and differentiation between the power of the units, because you could just deploy what you want. In match play, there's points now again, so we're really now seeing a breakout of how these armies will look on the battlefield, and what the meta might be, and how, what kind of strategy there is in building a list. So I think we're going to return to seeing Skaven taking advantage of those types of mechanics. When you built your list, because we're going to go over a couple of lists that you have put forward, did you see some of that element as well, or did you see something different?
I absolutely agree. No, 100%. That is correct. Yes.
So just to give some of the new viewers that are new to Age of Sigmar, and as well as people that have maybe bridged the gap and are looking to learn a little bit more about what's going on with match play, if you've been playing Age of Sigmar, I'm going to give you an idea of what we're going to be doing, and this is what this Unlocking 2.0 is about. I've asked a number of the people in the community, especially people that were involved with the 1.0 version of Unlocking, to come back and just present me with lists. And what I'm seeing a lot in these events, I'm involved with a bunch of the organized summer campaign with Age of Sigmar, but I've been talking to a lot of TOs, and there's a lot of events that I know one store says bring a 1K list, a 2K list, and a 2.5K list. And I know a lot of the tournaments are kind of around the 2,000 point mark. I've heard of a few that are 1,500. I've heard of a few that are over 2,000, but not quite to 2,500. So what I've done is I've asked people like Vince, and again, thank you for joining me today, Vince, to just kind of put together a list with a theme, and let's build something that might look competitive and might take advantage of some of the mechanics and the synergies in Age of Sigmar. So there's some very, very big differences that are coming out now with these new battle tomes, with things like allegiances. Would you care to elaborate a little more about that and how that might come into play for Skaven?
Sure. So, I mean, I'll say right now, obviously, unless you're playing Sylvaneth, you don't have your army specific stuff, right? So we're talking about the general allegiance abilities. That is to say, all the Grand Alliances have their allegiance abilities in the General's Handbook. So you've got, Chaos, Death, Destruction, and Order, right? And so obviously, since we're talking about Skaven, they're going to fall up under the Chaos allegiance abilities. And I mean, they're okay. Honestly, it's not something that really... Skaven are only tangentially Chaos, right? They've always been their own thing. Everybody hates them. Even the rest of Chaos hates them. If there was ever a case for a fifth faction, it would just be Skaven. They would just be their own faction. But that being said, none of the Chaos abilities really get my I don't know what to say, put gas in my tank when it comes to Skaven. I mean, I'll use them and certainly fine. But I think once we see our allegiance abilities, probably in the upcoming book in a month or two, around the Skaven specific abilities, it's going to be rock and roll all day long, because all the battalions I've seen for Skaven, going all the way back to the beginning, I've really loved. And, really the allegiance abilities are just an extrapolation on that concept.
Yeah, and I want to expand upon this a little. I actually did a demo evening last night at a local store where, and there's 4 stores that I commonly frequent in my area, all within 30 minutes maximum driving distance, which is great. One store kind of dried up when 8th edition ended and Age of Sigmar, came on board. A lot of people just, either didn't even try it or moved on to other games, or just a couple of people that I played with, but they never really latched onto it. And now they're coming back in droves. And I had a huge response last night. I was very happy to see. I had opened up an additional table set. And I had people coming to me, asking me questions at the end and wondering when I was going to do this again. So it was really good response. And one of the things they asked about, I think most commonly, it was, how does this whole thing with allegiances work? So just to give a little bit of explanation, when you build your list, you're going to see points. If you haven't seen the leaked pictures for the General's Handbook, it's coming out, tomorrow? It's going to be in stores.
Basically, yes, midnight tomorrow.
But most of this stuff has been leaked online, so you can find it. But if not, you're not going to have to wait too long before you can go pick it up at a store. And this is probably the first thing I'd buy if you're new to the game. And the second thing I'd probably buy is one of the get started sets. But the idea is that you can pick your list from any of the sub factions, which in some cases are like in order, High Elves, Empire, Bretonia, any of those other that used to be just specific army books in the old 8th edition. They're now sub factions, and within those they're broken out into their own sub factions even further. So you can pick your list from all of those main factions, which is Order, Chaos, Destruction, and Death, and you'll get various different types of benefits. This is new. This is newly released. And in the General's Handbook, you get a battle trait for your army, a command trait that your general can use, which is different from a command ability, and then you can get artifacts, which are essentially magic items to customize non-named, non-unique characters, and you get one by default. And if you get any battalion scrolls, which are groups of units that you, if you qualify for how this works, 2 of this unit, 3 of that unit, 1 of this. You'll get extra abilities. You have to pay the points in match play. If you pay for any battle scrolls, the bonus is that you get an extra magic item to customize onto a character. There's only 1 per character. So that's the basis. Right now, it's only those top level factions, with the exception of the recently released Sylvaneth Battle Tome, which gives its own special flavor if you are just Sylvaneth, which is within the order. And they're now about to release Bone Splitters, which are the Savage Orcs. And now we're going to start seeing more and more of them. And then there's a rumor that there might be a kind of a full tome with all the allegiances all together. I'm sure we're going to see a lot of this stuff released on the app, whether it's free or you have to purchase it. I'm not sure. Either way, that's kind of how this is working out. And the way that this series is going to run is we're not going to just do Skaven. I might revisit Skaven several times, and I've had a lot of people on my old video who've asked about it. Can you do this? Can we talk about this type of an army? I'm asking anybody who's out there viewing, if you have a list that you want me to look at, I'm going to do a separate video where I'm going to go through a bunch of lists and just evaluate them. Or you could send me the list of your army, just print it out, send it over to me, and I'll see if I can build you a list if you're looking to get into it. And I'll do that on a couple of shows, and maybe I'll invite some people to come and join me. In this episode, I've got our resident expert, Vince, who's sent me a list for each of those 3 tiers I mentioned. So we're going to get a little bit of an idea of it. It's not the only way that you're going to be able to build a Skaven list. It may or may not even include stuff from outside of Skaven, but it may just be one theme. And that's what I think we're going to be doing today, because I looked over the list briefly. And it looks like we're staying within a specific theme.
Oh, yes. We are strong theme, buddy. We're all theme today.
If we revisit this, especially when the new Skaven stuff come out, we're definitely going to be revisiting this. It could be a completely different list, and we could be doing 10 different types of Skaven-esque lists, even a Skaven list that might be complemented by things from the overall Chaos faction. So that's really how it works. I think I just wanted to give a little overview for newer people that might be coming on board. And again, feel free to send this stuff over to me, and we'll go see if we can do that. Anything you want to mention before we kind of jump into the first tier, the 1,000 point list?
Sure. So I am not a very good competitive player. So if you're really looking for the hot tactics, my list was not the right choice. Mitch has made the wrong choice if you're wanting the hottest, sweetest tech. However, I have piloted Skaven for a long time and have a fairly decent idea of how they run and what's good and what works in the Age of Sigmar. And what I tried to focus on is lists that I would want to run that I thought would play well at the points values you have prescribed there, right? Lists that are going to give a good game. That's what I'm looking for. I cannot speak to how much they will win, but I think you would have fun playing any of them. That is my thing.
I think we'll accomplish the task if we can provide people with a guide, an idea of how to build their list. Whether it's the most competitive list, you know what? We're not going to find that out now, because competitive AOS has been a thing, but competitive with the General's Handbook and the point structure and the organizational structure is brand new. It's just started. So we don't have enough sample size to know what's going to work, what's not going to work, other than what we as experienced players playing over the past year know when it comes to synergies and how effective certain models are. Even then, we're learning how effective they are for their points, because we have a whole new structure. And this is, again, just for match play. We're not talking about open or narrative, where things are a whole lot different. But in match play, we're back to some of the old, the old methodology and the old, math hammering. How effective is it? Overpriced? Is it underpriced? We're going to be learning this stuff, over time. So we're kind of all at the starting gate with that. So I know you're being humble, but your experience playing this Skaven is going to help newer viewers and even some older viewers with some ideas. That I know you want to be humble, but I think that you're very qualified. Plus, we always have a fun time doing analysis, whether I'm on your show or you're on my show. Typically, when we disagree.
I look forward to it. Absolutely, every time.
All right, man. I'm going to go and pull up one of your first lists here. Let's go, and I'm going to go ahead and share. Let's see.
So I'll talk about this first list while you're bringing it up. I'll give everybody an overview of what they're about to see. So what you're about to see is a 1,000-point list. Now, 1,000 points is a relatively small number, right? You don't have a lot. Now, I'm making an assumption in this list, by the way. My list assumption is that that I can pick an Ashen allegiance and get a battle line out of something Ashen oriented. I couldn't remember off of the points whether or not like Night Runners or Gut Runners, if you went all Ashen, counted as Ashen battle line. I'm pretty sure they do, but I honestly couldn't remember.
I can find that out while we're while you're going through the overview. I do have it up. I'm interested. Where is this from? Because I don't. I look. Is this your own, or is this from like Scroll Builder? Where is this this sheet actually from?
Oh, this format. So somebody put this out online, and it's really cool. It's just on Google Drive, and I'll shoot you the link. Basically, you just copy it from Google Drive over to your own. Let's lock on you. You copy it from Google Drive over to your own personal Google Drive, and then that left column has every unit in the game in it, and then it just auto does the rest, and you just pick how many you take, and it auto fills in the points. So it's really cool and useful.
That's pretty cool. Yes. I mean, I have my own Excel spreadsheet that I've been building, which is, you might as well just, hammer a nail in my skull. I'd love to have something that somebody also has already done until at least like, Army Builder or some of the other, Army Builder type softwares have, caught up if they haven't already.
Well, I'm sure you're going to see an app from GW, but
I hope so, because I'll use it. I like the actual app already, but it doesn't have points. So until they institute points, it's still just to get the war scrolls at your fingertips.
I would imagine we're not going to be waiting too long. That's my guess.
Yeah, I would hope not. And I bet you're right. So I'm looking actually at let's see if I can find the and I can share it. The actual points you were talking about. Was it Clan Ashen?
Ashen, yes.
Okay, so Clan Ashen. If you're all Ashen, your Night Runners are considered battle line. I'm looking.
I was pretty sure I was right there. Okay, good. Okay. So I'm correct.
Confirmed.
Excellent. All right. I'm not a cheater. I mean, I wasn't trying to be, but I also couldn't be bothered because I would run this list. All right. So let's talk about what 1,000 points means. 1,000 points means 1 to 4 leaders, 2 battle line, 0 to 2 artillery, 0 to 2 behemoths, right? So when I think about 1,000 points, here's the problem with 1,000 points. It's going to be hard to fit in too much in the way of big bruisers, right? Like you look at it, that's just not a lot of points. A lot of these big monsters, they're clocking in 400 points, 500 points, or 200-300 points, somewhere in that range. They're expensive.
And you have to first pay for your battle line units. So that's
and a leader. Yes, exactly.
And a leader, right.
So the point, now you might have a leader on a behemoth or something, but then they shoot out of both categories. The point with that is you're not going to have a whole lot of giant artillery pieces staring you down or really huge blocks in most cases, and if they are really huge blocks, they're going to be big blocks of weak targets. And even if you're playing on the standard board, like that is to say most of us just play on a 6x4 board. Now I know they recommend that at the smaller size you should be on like a 4x4. Okay, that's fine. But if you happen to be still on the 6x4, this list gets better. I know that's weird to say, the idea that this list is better based on the table size, but it's true. So what's going on here? All right, well, I thought for 1,000 points, it's the all Ashen list. Okay, that's right. It's the ninja list. You're bringing the ninjas to a gunfight. So here's what I like about this. So what do we got? We've got a Vermin Lord Deceiver. So he's our behemoth, right? This guy is an absolute monster. Okay. This thing is sweet as all get out. It's a big giant monster. It's brocking 12 wounds. He's got his little Doom Star that he can throw around, right? He's got, so it's like a single kind of range attack that does like D3 damage, has a -1 rend.
I'm going to pull him up.
Sure. And he can whip you with his tail as a ranged attack as well. Not to any huge effect, yes. Okay, so what do I love about this guy? Everything, number one. But, yeah. So if he shoots that Doomstar at a big unit, D6 damage instead of D3. Awesome stuff. His shooting at this guy, -2 to hit. Okay?
Monstrous. That's huge!
That is really big. Like, that, no joke, that's a big deal. Those units that hit on 4 or whatever, yeah, you hit on 6s now. Suck it. Okay? Like, it's very hard to shoot this guy. Even with cannons. Think about cannons aiming at this guy. Most cannons hit on a 4-up, sometimes 3-up when they got engineers around. Twisting that to a 5 or 6-up means this dude lives. He doesn't get shot down, especially because, remember, like I said, you're not facing, chances are, the overwhelming firepower, right? Like, they're not going to have 8 guns to be firing at you. Like
there might be one more machine. There might be one more machine or one unit with, like, say, long distance shooting. You in a small list. I hear what you're saying. You're not going to get bombarded. And with the minuscule amount that's going to be facing you in a small list, that makes that -2 so much bigger. And he's a monster, so he's 12 wounds. Yeah, I see exactly where you're going.
So he's nearly unkillable in a small game, okay, because they're not going to have the meat or the heat to put him down at range. He's super fast, running around at a 12-inch move. His spell makes him insanely mobile, okay? He's a wizard, so also great. You get your wizard in here, right? And his spell is cast on a 3. A 3.
What? That's great.
Okay. And basically, you can take him or another hero within 13 inches. You remove them from the battlefield and then set them up anywhere on the battlefield more than 6 inches from an enemy model, right? That model cannot move again in your next movement phase, i.e. the thing that's about to happen, right? But you can still charge. Now, I want you to really think about this, Mitch. Really think about what's going on here. I told you this guy's basically unkillable at range, right? And at this, especially this point value. Now, you get unlucky, he gets locked into combat, right? They get some stuff on him. No, you don't, because as soon as it's my turn, I'm going to skitterleap his butt right out of there and put him 6 inches away from a juicy combat that I want, or whatever, 6 inches away exactly. I'm going to Doomstar a unit on my turn. I'm going to prehensile tail the crap out of that unit, and then if I feel like it, I'm going to charge in and kill him with the stiletto, right?
Sweet.
This dude is a straight killer at this point level.
Yeah, he's going to give pause to any other big monstrous model as well that tries to come in and take him, because that's going to be your best bet to try and take him on.
Yeah, you can just keep him running away. And the trick is, to get him down, you've almost got to like one round him or have some bad luck with a back-to-back turn, right? For the most part, he's just going to live and he's going to keep killing things. And then obviously his command ability aligns quite well with the rest of the army, because it's Ashen specific. And it's basically, if he uses this ability, you can reroll all failed wound rolls for Ashen models that are within 13 inches when they attack in the combat phase. Pretty sweet. It's, because it targets all your Ashen people, everybody in here is Ashen. The only sad part about this is, because he's so mobile, it could often be the case that nobody else is in range. But that's all right.
Yeah, but the rest of your forces have some special abilities, too, that are going to be able to keep them up or deploy them to where you need to.
Oh, yes, my friend. That's right. Because this whole thing is like a foot avoidance annoyance army. Like, it's just next level avoidance stuff. So you get past the Deceiver, right? And we go to the Night Runner Gutter Runner combo.
And
it really doesn't matter You can pick either one you want. I got
Now,
30 Night Runners. I got 15 Gutter Runners.
how many of those broken out? Are they all in one unit? Because I know you have the 2 battle line core units that you have to deploy, and you can buy multiples of 10 or whatever the minimum value is when you pay your points. But you can deploy them as one larger unit. So how are you breaking these out on the tabletop?
The Night Runners are technically 2 units because you'd have to do one as 20 and one as 10 realistically, right, to satisfy your battle line requirement.
Okay.
Or you know, whatever. You could include another small group. Like, it's the only thing that's kind of annoying because their real bonus starts at 20. So it's kind of easy to get them down below their bonus if you put them like that. But if you don't, then you got to do a second unit to fulfill your battle line requirement. Blah blah blah. It's just easier to the bonus they get from having 20 models. Honestly, is not that big. I'm not sure that I wouldn't just break them into 3 groups of 10 and call it a day. Okay.
Yeah,
who cares about the bonus?
You could put them in as one unit of 30 even, but I don't think the other units that you have are considered battle line.
They're not, and that's the issue. Like, these guys are paying your battle line tax. Yeah. I would honestly probably break them into 3 units of 10. Screw the 20 model bonus. I don't care.
It gives you more flexibility, absolutely. Now, just for the viewers, the reasoning behind this is that when you pay the points for the minimum, and if the minimum could be 3 in a unit, 5 in a unit, 10 in a unit, whatever it spends on the particular unit, that's what you're paying for when you pay your points. So if 100 points gives you 10 Night Runners, and you want, say, 2 units of 15, well, you're going to have to buy 4 sets of this, or you can't buy 3 sets and take one and divide it up. Each one, even if you don't have enough to fulfill the models, even to fulfill it, there's an excerpt in the General's Handbook that says if you have a partial unit, you're still paying the full value. So it does behoove you to try to break this up. Even if you want to keep that 120, they may take some losses and lose that benefit for the quantity that they get. And why don't we review what that benefit is? But yeah, I could see why you'd break them up into 3 units. So let me go pull up Night Runners.
It's not worth it. They're not to not pull them up. I just mean their benefit. If they have 20 or more models, their stab attack on a 6 to wound becomes a rend of -2. It's always rend of -1 if they when they stab on a 6. Yeah, that's fine. Whatever. Who cares? It's minimal. Yeah, you look at these guys on paper, they're garbage. Okay, you look at that. Like, look at those attacks. They got some 12-inch range, 4s and 5s, 1 damage. They got 1 attack, stabs, 4s and 4s, no rend, 1 damage. You're like, okay, what's going on here? Well, 1, they're your battle line. I wouldn't probably even take them, but they're also meat. They're a lot of big. It's 30 guys for a pretty cheap price. But these guys are your movement kings. Now, you got to watch out. They're very susceptible to battle shock. All Skaven are in this case. But who cares? That move might say 7 inches. That is a lie. Their move is 10 at average. Okay, because Night Runners can run and shoot all the time. Okay, so you're always going to be running around the board like 10, basically 8 to 13 inches is their real move, right? And you're just going to be putting shots into things. This is about massed fire just dancing outside of at their maximum range. You're going to line your units up, conga line them out at 12 inches, run them around, and pull the enemy army apart. Yes, they can probably get off a charge on you the next round, right? And that's fine. But you are also going to retreat away all the time. What you're going to do is you're going to move in, you're going to pull the army apart, make units move in directions they shouldn't be. You're going to retreat, right? And you're going to use the combination of the shooting and the stabbing with these garbage units to just work down things you don't want to deal with.
I can see there's a lot of, I think one of the most underused tactics in the game, even for people that have played since the first launch of Age of Sigmar, is the retreat. A lot of people don't realize that there's a lot of aspects to retreating that benefit you. We could be luring an opponent to a specific area to come after you, and then just, if you're a fast-moving unit, yeah, you take some losses, but you could pop out of that area and pretty much strand a slower-moving unit to a part of the board where nothing matters, unless there's a scenario objective there, for the next 2 turns without trying to get back into it. These guys are going to have the mobility to be active in different parts of the board, redirect to other parts of the board as needed, and all along, even if they're not in combat, they can be chucking those stars and slings and still take incurring wounds and contributing to the battle. So I don't think they're garbage. You're probably not paying a ton for them, but they definitely have a great role.
Yeah, exactly. They're there to control the board, right? To give you the movement, let you control how the enemy's moving. So there you go. That's their role.
All right, and the next one is the Gutter Runners.
Yeah, let's talk about the Gutter Runners next. So, and really, the Gutter Runners are just better versions of the Night Runners, right? Really. These guys, you get 5 in a pack. So they're, as I have them, again, I divided them up into 10 and 5. I don't care. You could set them up as 3 units of 5. Doesn't really matter. However you like it. It's not really relevant. The Gutter Runners are basically, again, the same unit. Okay. The difference is 2 very, very important things. Like if you look at their attack profile, it looks very similar. There is a slight difference though, and that is in the attacks number. These guys are sorting 2 ranged attacks, 2 melee attacks, and their melee attack has a default random -1, right? Okay. So at the same time, these guys, again, 7-inch move, very fast, but you should read that as 8 to 13, because again, these guys can run and shoot all the time, which you're going to be doing. Okay. And they're going to put out more. They put 5 of these guys puts out the same amount of heat as 10 of the other dudes, right? As 10 of the Night Runners. So smaller, easier profile to walk around. They're slightly better safe, slightly better bravery. Who cares? The real goal with these guys is their sneaky infiltrator stability, right? The trick is you don't have to set them up, and then in your first movement phase, you set up all the models in the unit within 6 inches of the end and no more than 9 inches away, right? And then that's their movement. Fantastic. Exactly what you needed to have happen. So this is 3 units of ambushers, basically, right? They're going to come on from some other side, come in, get you more shooting. It's immediate pressure. Like, basically, it's very likely that at your turn, during your shooting turn on 1, you can be easily shooting a large majority of the army and of the enemy army, picking your fights, and if you wanted to, even charging very very like exposed targets, or at least making charge rolls at them.
Well, if you don't want to charge, you could just sit at that 12 range because you're outside the 9 inches and still be effective. You can be hero hunting, wizard hunting, war machine hunting, and you force a 11 or 12-inch charge on your opponent. It's not a bad deal.
Yeah. The idea here is absolutely that, like, you play this army of assassins and ninjas like an army of assassins and ninjas, right? That is to say, you target all the vital stuff first, because your guys are all have shooting attacks and all have a really good mobility. Like, everybody in this army runs an average of 10 to 12 inches. That's a lot of mobility, right? What that means is that you need to point and click kill enemy wizards, leaders, war machines, these kinds of things. You take them out right away. There's no hesitation. Like, and all that's left then is the dumb meat that then you just dance around.
All right. Okay. So let's see what's next on the list here. We have, so there's 2 units of gunner runners. Yep. 1 is 10, 1 is 5. I imagine that you might even consider breaking these out into 3 units to even give you more board control.
Correct.
Just so for 1,000 points, when I was doing this with the demo, and I know that they're looking to do this to try and maximize table space. A couple of the places that I go to have like 8x4 tables, and they just break it out into 4x4 sections to get more players playing side by side. 4x4 is a really small table, but this is not a very big army. So being able to zip around, you may be able to get corralled on a 4x4 with some of the slower moving units. You play this army on a 6x4, things are going to be so much more spread out. They're going to be like, I can see exactly what you meant when you opened up with it, why they would even gel that much better, because you just have so much more real estate for them to outmaneuver anybody who's not going to be able to keep up with them.
Yep.
All right, what's next? Skaven Assassin.
The Assassins. Yeah, there are 2 Assassins.
There you go.
Okay.
All right.
All right. So the Assassin, obviously classic, and I love this guy. And so what he's going to do is this guy, right? He's our extra punch hiding in the units, making people afraid to charge our units. Because we're dancing around at range, and you never know which unit contains one of these guys.
Now you don't have to declare that. You I know that with Dark Elves, I think you had to declare it. Do you have to do that with the Skaven Assassins? I forget.
You have to secretly write down which unit they're in.
Okay.
But it's a secret. Your opponent doesn't know, right? And so the key is they have to wonder, is that unit of Night Runners going to actually contain an assassin? And I'm going to be in for more than I thought I was in for, right? Because make no mistake, this dude's Weeping Blades aren't screwing around, okay? Like 3 attacks on 3/3 neg 1 rend and D3 damage. He has an outsized amount of damage he can deal for, a guy of his sort of profile and size.
Let's remember that most characters have on average about 5 wounds. So
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. On average, he puts out about 4 damage a turn with those Weeping Blades at neg 1 rend, which isn't too shabby at all. And then as well, he's got his throwing stars, which are fine. They're just, they are what they are. And then obviously he really shines again when attacking heroes, right? Because you can reroll all your failed hit rolls when he targets a hero. At that point, you're much more likely to get the job done. Remember that our initial guy also allowed wound rerolls, right? Our initial boss. So between this guy with the Vermin Lord Deceiver around popping the ability means that all of a sudden you're rerolling hits, you're rerolling wounds, you're going to connect with a lot of those things. It's pretty solid. I would love it if I would always take the Weeping Blades over the Fighting Claws. I do not understand the Fighting Claws at all. The extra 2 attacks, but lacking the rend and at 1 damage, your ability to reroll a hit roll of 1. Who cares? No, it's Weeping Blades all day, every day. That's what I would say there. Again, this guy is super fast. He's got a slightly better save. His job is to be there and be protected because he can just ride around in units, right? Whereas most heroes can't.
Right, and this guy can, when he pops out, I think if I remember correctly, because I'm not reading through this, does he get the ability still to get the first attack even if it's your opponent's combat phase?
Yep.
Yeah, sure, that's what I was remembering. All right, so yeah, let's explain why that's important.
Because when your enemy piles into you and thinks that they're going to be all clever and choose first because it's their turn and they're going to haha, I'm going to get this unit. And then you're like, nope, Pop, guess whose turn it is to attack? It's me. And then he goes and he weakens that unit, right? Before they ever get a chance to swing, kills that hero before they ever get a chance to swing. Those are incredibly good things, right? Suddenly what your enemy thought was going to be, a good turn for them because they would get first choice, first attack, whatever. You flip the script and suddenly you've weakened their unit before they ever got a chance to attack. And
you could potentially be dropping both of these guys out and they both get to do that before your opponent does anything. It's not just you get to choose one of them. They both get that first attack.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
That is right. The only sad thing about this is that he can only be hidden in Skaven units. I know that sounds weird, but sadly the Vermin Lord Deceiver is not actually Skaven. I would love it if you could hide this guy in the Vermin Lord Deceiver and just have him jump off his shoulder.
Jump off his shoulder. I'd love it if you just pulled him out of a pocket,
Sure.
Or robes, or just a little zip in the robes and just chuck them in front of your enemy. That's great.
Yeah, ironically, the Vermin Lord Deceiver does not actually have the Skaven type.
He's a demon.
He is a demon. Yes, that is correct.
All right, let's see what's next here. So that's the end of this particular one. Did you have a battalion bonus on this? I know that you're all Ashen. Was there any kind of other battalion? The only thing I think that you're getting as a benefit for staying within this theme is the fact that the Night Runners become your battle line, where alternatively you would have to take a default battle line type unit. So yeah, okay. So this is your sneaky Ashen specific model, and there doesn't appear to be any battle line.
No battalions. There really isn't any battalions out there that are pointed, I think, for Ashen. Again, this is the kind of thing we'll see more of over time, but there are Ashen battalions, but I don't think any of them got points.
Okay. Well, we might, again, this is stuff that we could always see when the battle tome comes out, because we know we're going to see battle tomes for all of these.
Oh yeah, sure.
All right, so let me go zoom in a little bit on this. This is our 2,000 point. Now, I think this is probably going to be the level where we see – this is the feedback I'm getting. I talked to a lot of tournament organizers. I've been organizing stuff myself, so I consider myself a TO. But there are plenty of people out there that are doing it on a much larger scale, larger events, and more of them than certainly I do. I'm fairly new to it. What I'm hearing is around 2,000 points. I hear some people talking about even 2,250 most of the time. So I think that this is kind of the level where – you're going to see a little bit more action on the organized circuit. But I want to be very clear when I talk about it. 2,000 points is actually not the same as we might see in 8th edition. I think that we actually see armies that in some cases are a little bit smaller for the points, because we've got more units in these armies that are monstrous with multiple wounds. They cost more, and we see a lot more centerpiece and big monstrous type units in general that are also costly. So what I'm personally seeing with the games that I've been playing using these points is that they're probably around anywhere from 20 to 30% smaller for the equivalent size that we saw in 8th edition. So when you talk about, like, when you get to the 2,500 point level, I think we're still kind of below the volume that we might have seen at 8th edition. I don't know if that's what you're seeing as well, but that's been my experience.
Yeah, no, I agree. And this army is going to prove that. I wish you could play musical cues, because if you could, this army would just play "All I Do Is Win, 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 Win," because this is such a ridiculous force.
Okay. I'll have to. You got to let me know that, man, and I'll get it ready for you next time we do one of these.
Absolutely. It's just like, my God. All right, so this is a nightmare. So at 2,000 points, it's a relatively compact force, but it's just full of murder. So Thankful and Bone River, like, that's 2020. I know I kind of cheated. Whatever, who cares?
All right. You can find a way to reduce it by a little bit. I have plenty of lists. I have plenty of lists that are like 20 to 80 points below the max. So
yeah. All right. So Thankful and Bone River. Oh boy, where do we start with this monstrosity? This is a general right here, baby. Obviously this is the big guy on his rat. You always go warp fire projectors. You're thinking about the Brazers. You're wrong. It's the warp fire projectors. That's the answer. Okay. So what does this guy do? Why is this guy good? 13 wounds, 4-up save, heals a wound every round. Warp fire projectors, what do? Pick a unit within 8 inches. They suffer 2d6 mortal wounds. That's it. End of discussion.
Yeah. Let's go over that a little for a second here. Let's just establish that, first of all, they're mortal wounds. If you don't know what mortal wounds are, they bypass your standard saves, the one that you see in the profile. There are plenty of scenarios out there where where units have special saves. You can even have multiple special saves that will apply towards mortal wounds. But with the FAQ, you get that save for every individual mortal wound, where the standard save is before the multiplier. Mortal wounds are for every individual. So let's just first bring that out. And then let's also realize that when you talk about how many, 2d6 is bonkers. It is absolutely crazy. Yep. Even though it's only 8 inches, you are wiping a character off the board. You're debilitating a monster. You could be just completely crippling a standard size unit with just 1 wound each. That is absolutely crazy.
Yep. It's pretty good. All right. So as a spellcaster, he's pretty great because he can cast 2 spells a turn. So anytime you get the 2 spell action, pretty solid. His spell is basically Arcane Bolt 2 Electric Boogaloo, but with a longer range. He's got Warpstone, so he can reroll his casting values. Sounds awesome. That's pretty great. His spell does do more damage against Skaven, which is very funny. Like, that's a very flavorful thing that he burns his own kind more efficiently than he burns others. So in that mirror match, he's a real winner. But yeah, whatever.
That's great. I love it. Yeah, you when you mentioned the arcane bolt and his scorch ability, that's another two elements at range, and one of them pretty far to get another D3 mortal wounds. This guy's just dishing out crazy mortal wounds. I can't believe it.
That is correct.
I remember when we first went over this guy, I was a little flabbergasted too.
Yes, like by the shooting time, by the conclusion of the shooting phase, it is a very realistic possibility that you have done 2d6 plus 2d3 mortal wounds to a single unit. You have reduced a unit to rubble, right? Like, that is what has happened. So that's solid. And his command ability is pretty great because it's mortal wound protection. He takes your rats, he makes them tougher. He gives everybody a 6 ward save against against wounds and mortal wounds, not just mortal wounds, wound or mortal wound, right? And if the unit has 13 or more models, then you get 1 to the roll. They get a 5 upward.
And then when you consider that they're a horde army, that's going to be a lot of rolls. You're going to be saving guys, yeah.
Well, yeah. This army has a kill pack, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So, yeah, pretty good. Ignoring wounds on a 5 up, yeah, it's pretty solid. It's a pretty solid thing if you can do it.
And he's standing at 500 points. So
he's worth every penny.
Yeah, I was going to say. All right, keep going, man.
Screaming Bell.
All right,
so the big bell. The big bell is your second big giant ridiculous thing. Of 2 of 3. Like this army, like, its target priority is a real problem for this army because the enemy shooters are going to have a lot of different things to shoot at. The bell is going to get escorted, right? Because the bell moves super fast based on who's around it. And in this case, we're just going to surround this thing with either the clan rats or the storm vermin, preferably the clan rats, just so they can all be around there. So it's going to go, it actually can move pretty good if you've got 30 clan rats around it, which are our battle line unit. The attacks that the bell puts out are like, they're okay. It's fine. You know what I mean? Like, it's not why you bring the thing. All right. Yes, it does damage. Great. What it does do is if it gets close to enemy wizards, which it's never going to get as close to trip it off, they subtract 1 from their casting value. Great. Okay. 6 inches. Yeah. I mean, like, they gotta be next door.
Yeah, but this thing's going to get up in their grills before long anyway, so yeah.
Sure. The point being is that this thing actually moves fairly rapidly because, again, it's for every 3 Skaven. Whoa. Yeah, for every 3, you're fine. For every 3 Skaven models that are within an inch of the Screaming Bell at the start of your movement phase, add 1 inch to its movement characteristic until the end of the phase. If there are at least 10 Skaven models within 1 inch, when you roll the die to see how far it can charge, it makes 2d6 attacks with its rusty wheels and spikes in the following combat phase rather than d6. Great. Neat. Super fun. The point being, you got 30 guys around it. So this thing is trotting around if it's, if you haven't killed off any of the unit at 14 inches.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's pretty fast. Now you're going to actually lose the rats because they themselves won't be able to keep up. But it can do 1 turn where it shoots off real fast. So that's nice. Which is going to, be important. The Peel of Doom is obviously why you buy this thing, right? So you can roll your little bell. And, so yeah, you roll the 2 dice, you add it together. You can't ever apply modifiers, hence giving you the impossible victory. You can't win that. You can't actually ever achieve it.
Yeah, it's more of a joke. Just if you're new to Skaven and you look at that and think that it's crazy, it's not possible.
Right. So what you're looking for is there's plenty of good results on this chart. Okay. But what you're really looking for is the 7 is great because now Thankful's popping off with a bonus. The Grey Seer on top of this is popping off with a bonus, right? But 8 and above, we're doing some good stuff, right? Now we've got on a 4 or more, all the units around are suffering D3 mortal wounds. On a 10 or 11, all your models are making 1 extra attack with each of their weapons. Great, like obviously good, especially when we come to the storm vermin because those dudes are straight killers. And then on a 12, it's just the most ridiculous result possible when you roll boxcars. You get a vermin lord.
Now I'm curious how that's going to come into play in match play, because I've been talking to some, again, TOs about these types of things, and there's a number of different models in just about every main faction and sub faction that has some kind of mechanic that brings something new onto the table. So what I've been hearing, based on the way summoning works, even though this is not considered a summoning spell, it still falls into the interpretation of how summoning works in match play. It's any new model that's brought onto the table. What's your viewpoint? Because there's a couple of these types of things, like Neferata creating a vampire lord, in certain circumstances, and others. Lariel has a mechanic where she can bring on a tree lord for free. Would that be something that you would consider needing to be in a pool, or is it something outside the pool? Because from the way I read it is that if it's a existing unit, you can restore lost models, but anything that brings a brand new unit of any kind onto the table, you need to have points reserved in order to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't have a good answer for you. I'm sure it'll be open to interpretation. If you had to pay the points, it would be stupid for this. There you go.
Well, there's a bunch of these where that's the case, and I think that that's probably where it's going to go. But I think that you, as the viewer, should check out your local TO and see how they plan to do it, because, like anything else, it's going to be like you said, it's going to be based on interpretation. The way I read it, anything that brings a new unit, though, you'd have to draw from your summoning pool, which is points put to the side. I would hope it's not that, because then, yeah, I agree, it's stupid. And what do you do if you roll this? Do you re-roll it? Do you pick the one beneath it? There's got to be some way to do it. There's a number of those types of things that you should be prepared for playing match play that kind of that's different from what you see on the War Scrolls. So it's very important to check with your local TO.
Yep. And this guy adds another spell, very important, because you've got the duplicate spell thing where you can only attempt to cast a spell once. He brings in Crack's Call, which is, again, another awesome mortal wounds dealer, especially when it comes to things like slow units, like particular Stormcaster stuff that lumber around at 4 inches. You're going to dish the mortal wounds on them, because you roll 2d6 compared to their move and everything over. They suffer a mortal wound for.
Jeez, Skaven, I remember from the first time around, nobody dishes out mortal wounds like these guys.
They bring the heat.
Yeah.
All right. You ready for the next one?
All right. What's the next one? Let's go pull that up. Next one is the Storm Vermin. Yes, I want to just say, before we even get into the Storm Vermin, I had a unit of 20 Storm Vermin drop Nagash in one turn. And I was playing Nagash. And so, yeah, Storm Vermin are unbelievable.
These guys are great. Move 6, right? 2 attacks each on a 4-up, 3-up, neg 1 damage. What? Say what now? Like, that is bonkers good for what is effectively just a dumb guy with a halberd, right? So they've got rend, they got multi-attacks. They're better than coin flip on both scores, right? So fantastic. And then, again, like, even their abilities are good. They've got the pack drummers to get the extra 2 inches whenever they run or retreat, right? And the standard bearer ability is amazing because they can retreat and charge in the same turn. Good Lord, that is good. Okay. Like, that is so beyond good. In a bad fight, want to kill something else that somebody's trying to hold 3 inches out of combat? Sweet. Retreat, charge them. Done. Same turn. You choose your fights. It's redonk how good that ability is. Yeah. Okay.
And you could strand a unit that somebody thinks they're going to be able to get pay some, dish out, and now they're stuck nowhere, right? Yeah.
Yep. And obviously you can carry shields, because why wouldn't you? Which gives them a 4-up save in melee against damage 1. I guess it's not even just melee, it's just against damage 1. And then they've got the Murderous Frosty, where their hit becomes 3-up, 3-up, if the unit has fewer models than its own unit. Oh, so good. Because so many people in AOS, like myself, like playing small elite units. Guess what, elite unit? You're now taking 2 hits on a 3-up, 3-up, neg 1, rend 1 damage. It's fantastic. Just going to pile in and murder some fools.
This is an elite unit, but it's deceiving. It's very deceiving. Yeah,
they're solid.
They munch, and there's very little left. Yep. All right, let's get to the next one. Let's see. We're at
Clan Rats.
Clan Rats. Okay.
Yeah, they're the battle line unit. They exist, so they exist. I mean, like, seriously, they're the least interesting thing in this army. They attack people. That's it.
So how many do we have in this?
30. They're like 10 for 60 points. They're super cheap.
Okay.
Like they are here to be. We call these guys min core. That's their job.
Yeah, so
stand around B bodies.
Three units, because we didn't go over it. And when you jump up to 2,000 points from 1,000, you have another requirement for a core unit. So instead of 2, now you have 3. So these guys are going to be running. You get a little bit more in the leaders. You get more monsters, more artillery, more stuff like that too. But you have to include. You have an auto include for an additional battle line unit, another core unit. So you're going to be running these 3 10-man units. That's what you mean by min core.
That is correct.
Okay.
And I will not benefit from their strength in numbers, and I could not care less. Yeah. These guys are bodies to be sacrificed. These are chaff. They escort the bell and then run forward and sacrifice their lives bravely so my elite units get into the combats they want.
Distractions. All right. So what are you paying for that? 180 points. Big deal.
Yeah, it's pretty great deal. Like anytime you're in zombie territory, the 10 for 60, yeah, you're doing all right. You're doing all right.
So next on the list is 6 rat ogres for 360 points. You're breaking these out into 2 units of 3?
That's correct.
One big monster. Okay, gotcha. All right.
Although you could do either, whatever's appropriate. You could set them up at the beginning of the game however you want. Love these guys. They have warp fire guns now. That's pretty fantastic. So that's an extra range attack. Range, it's not the best. It's 5 up, 3 up, but it's neg 1 rend and D3 damage, which ain't nothing to scoff at. Again, they're fast. The real advantage to these guys is simply that they have that extra range thing. Their real power is obviously in the melee attack, where they're packing 4 attacks on this ogre sized base at a 4 up, 3 up, neg 1, 2 damage each. 2 damage each, very important. There's a lot of things in the game that trigger on 1 damage, as we just saw for like the clan rat shields. But that's certainly not unique to Skaven. There's lots of things that are like against damage 1, you have this better ability. So having 2 damage troops is very beneficial. Basically, if their Rabid Fury is pretty good, when you first charge in, when you make 6s to wound, there you go, you get more attacks. They just gen out more attacks. So,
all right. So there's your rat ogres. They're going to be absorbing a lot of punishment, dishing it out. They move pretty good. They're certainly going to be a distraction for your opponent because they're going to command attention. But the real behemoth in this, and the real thing that people are going to be distracted by is going to be that Hell Pit Abomination. And here he is. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. Everybody knows a Hell Pit Abomination when it comes to Skaven. Let's hear more about it.
So I actually quite like this model. I think this thing has everything good going for it. The only downside of it is its move value. That random 2d6 means this is a big monster that moves 7 inches, which is tough. Yeah. But beyond that, I love everything about this guy. Okay, the attacks that this thing puts out are just out of the park. Like undamaged, this thing puts out 6 attacks that rend at neg 2 and do 2 damage, and 6 attacks that rend at neg 1 and do 3 damage. Okay. He also, again, punishes enemy casters, a little better range now, so it's 12 inches. And he also heals. Like, monsters that heal that is a gold ability. The fact that this guy the fact that he can climb his way back down the chart, the wound chart, right, is what's important. Because he also has that ability to come back alive, like 33% of the time. When he dies, he pops back up at D6 wounds, and if you keep him alive, guess what's going to happen? He's going to start healing again. Yep.
Yeah, you can't waste. You can't let this guy go. You have to focus fire on him until you put him down, and then if he comes back, it's even worse. But if you don't devote that attention, then he'll just be at full. And that die 3 is a big deal. I've seen a lot of healing where it's only 1 point per hero phase. Die 3 adds up fast.
It really does. The trick with this army is you've got 3 high priority targets you need to take out, and none of them are the real killers. That's the secret to how this army wins, okay? Because people are going to focus on the Hell Pit, on Thankful, and on the Bell, because they're all big multi-wound things that do a lot of damage and are very visible. However, all those three things are doing is sneaking the storm vermin into murder position, so they can just run charge like lunatics and just hack everyone to pieces.
Yeah, something to keep in mind again at the 2,000 point level. I forget. I think it's 4 behemoths, which they're not monsters are not always behemoths. It's a battlefield role as opposed to a keyword classification. You've got your 2 here, so 3. Excuse me, you have 3. Yeah. Big shocking and attention grabbers. Certainly magnets for the big cannons. Of which I think, if I remember correctly, how many can you take in 2,000? Is it 4 or is it 2?
3.
It's 3. Okay, I averaged right. But yeah, I could totally see why the storm vermin would be the case, and yeah, I would. So you're putting these guys at as 1 unit of 30? Is that where you're?
Storm vermin are 1 unit of 30. You could break them up if you needed to, like depending on the particular battle. But I would run them as 1 unit of 30. Yeah,
let everybody again watching should keep in mind that in match play, if you look at the scenarios, now there's absolutely so many scenarios since the launch of Age of Sigmar, with all the source material that's come out, all the books, the battle tomes, the compilations, all the hard and soft covers that have come out. There's so many. A lot of them are free, some of them are proprietary, but even included in the General's Handbook, there are scenarios, and I'm of course going to see even that many more over time. The majority of the scenarios in match play include things like taking and holding objectives and having the highest model count in order to get the bonus of that objective. Armies like this, where you have units of 20 or 30 in a unit and a bunch of units that have 10, if you don't pay attention to those, you're going to miss out on winning the scenario. It's not just about killing. And what I love about this army is that, like you said, it is deceptive. If you try to pay only attention to the behemoths, you're going to lose out because you're going to be outnumbering your opponent in many cases and gain the objectives and win the scenario. And if they do the reverse, those behemoths are just going to punish you. So yeah, this is a win-win on both sides. It's going to give opponents fits.
All right, and then the last one is the 2,500 point army, and for this one, I just decided to turn the cheating up to 11. I'll at a glance before we get into individual scrolls, because I want to move quickly through this just because I don't have a huge amount of time.
Okay, no problem.
But we can certainly
let's highlight on the scrolls that are very very important to this.
Yeah. So if you're looking at this and you don't immediately vomit, good on you. This is a grotesquerie of shooting power. That's what this is. I was like, oh, if we're going 2,500 points, get out Skryre. Get out the Skryre nonsense. All the shooting. So there's a Skaven warlord because I wanted a leader with a command ability. I don't care if that guy dies. He's irrelevant to the success of this army. He's just a cheap leader with a command ability. Welcome to the party, buddy. You're irrelevant. The real leader that matters is the Arch Warlock. He's your good spellcaster. He's the dude who you can run around with, and that's the old Ikit Claw model, right? That dude's rather solid. But the punishment at range that this thing puts out. The Arch Warlock's got a Warp Fire Gauntlet. What's he doing? Putting out D3 mortal wounds. He has the little version of what Thankful had, right? You got Storm Fiends. What do they have? I got 6 of them. 2 of their battle line units in a Skryre army. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Wait. Let's tell the viewers what a Storm Fiend unit really is, though.
It's the 3 massive rat ogres that have guns on them.
Yeah. So you have rat ogres with mini guns. So
if you don't know what a minigun is, yeah. It's like the gun they put on fighter jets, but it's a smaller version of it. Yes. Yeah. That is correct. If you ever watched The Predator or Terminator 2, just imagine 2 of those or 3 of those on a rat. That's what we're talking about. Okay. So, and I love a good minigun minute. So
you got 6 units of these. How many are they? 2 or 3 each?
They're 3 each. I got 2 units of them and 2 units of acolytes as my battle line.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
They'd all be individual. The acolytes are the bomb throwers, the little poison wind globadiers from previous missions. Great battle line unit for this army, by the way. So the and again, this army is just about hot, stupid mortal wound death. Okay, just ridiculous ranged mortal wound death. The poison, like, or just insane. It's everything shoots, and it's all deadly. The acolytes are throwing their little wind globes. Okay, are only it's only 9 inches.
Yeah.
But it's a 4+4 neg 2 d3 damage. Neg 2.
Oh god, you have 2 units of 10 or a total 10?
I have 2 units of 5, so it's
Okay,
10 total.
gotcha.
And they add 1 to hit if the target has 10 or more models. And they can shoot at enemy units that aren't visible to them, so you can run them behind other things, right? And just toss over the top. You've got your Jezzails. If I need to explain to you why Jezzails are good, then you've never played against Skaven. That's what that tells me.
First of all, they look amazing. I love the way Jezzails look. I'm so glad they're good in this game.
They are. Jezzails, 36-inch range, 4 up to hit, 3 up to wound, neg 2 rend, and 2 damage. Yep.
Yeah. I just love this look.
It's so good. And then the sniper, when you roll a 6 to hit, you don't even roll to wound. You just do it. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Love it. The Storm Fiends are either going to have warp fire throwers or rattling guns. Again, they're both really, really good. And you know, you just deal with the mortal wounds or whatever. You got the lightning cannons, which are, again, just hot ranged death. Just 24 inches, right? You pick a unit. Yeah, there you go. So to fire the warp lightning cannon, first select an enemy unit as the target, then roll a dice. The result of this dice determines the power of the warp lightning shot. Okay, so you're rolling this dice, right? You get like a 4, let's say. So it's a 4. Next, roll 6 more dice. Each time one of these dice equals or beats the result of the power dice, the target unit suffers a mortal wound.
I love the randomness of it. I've faced these guys quite a few times. Sometimes they work, but you're always going to get something. You're not going to get nothing. Sometimes they work really well, and it'll end your day fast. But you're always going to get a little bit of something.
Yeah, I mean, in general, they're going to do a couple mortal wounds a turn. They both put out some mortal wounds. It's just about more mortal wounds, right?
24 inches, nothing to sneeze at.
Right, exactly. Then we get into the weapon teams. Oh, sweet, sweet weapon teams. How I love you so much. You are the real winners you're in my heart, at least. So, if we look at the rattling gun team, so we start out, here's what's important. You look at that profile, 2d6 attacks, 4 up, neg 1, 1 damage. That's pretty decent already at an 18-inch range. 7 shots on average coming out of this dumb thing, right? Okay. Now, if they're within 9 inches, you had 1 to hit. You shouldn't be within 9 inches. So who cares? The important part is the more hot warp lead. Okay. Do you remember what this does?
Yes, I do. And you should always be doing it.
That is correct. Because you do it and you crank it, and it's like off the screen right now. But the idea is, did I say 2d6 attacks? No. I meant 4d6 attacks, as long as I don't roll a 1. 4d6 shots. Shots. Yeah. That's ridiculous. So I got 3 of these guys because I think the idea of 12d6 shots sounds pretty awesome.
And if you roll a 1, you take die 3 mortal wounds. So what?
Yeah. Like, you've only got a 33% chance to even kill yourself, right? I mean, okay. Like, it's fine. And it doesn't stop the shooting, by the way. You still get to shoot.
You still get the shots off. That's right.
Yeah, unless they kill themselves. So, who cares?
There's a lot of these little
until
teams.
You're dead. Oh, yeah, buddy. Because this is called Skryre's cheatiness, all thrown together into one massive pile of hot warp lead. Warp fire thrower teams are just as ridiculous as the other one because, again, you just pick a unit, they suffer D3 mortal wounds.
And what's the range on that? I don't have
8 inches.
8 inches. Okay, it's not long, but once you're gonna have to close with these guys. When you do, these things will be waiting for you. Okay.
Yeah, the key is these guys all move pretty well. They've all got like a 6-inch move, right? And so you just spread them out, run them around, so you can't get multiples of them killed at once. And they're all just passing out mortal wounds. Like that's all you're doing. It's not anything too tricky. Right. The warp grinder team, what's that there for? If you remember, that's the thing that lets you take a unit off board and then come up with it, right? Like later,
right?
Okay, like you can
burrowing in the mole action.
Yeah, and you can set up, within 9 inches from enemy models, kind of standard stuff. But the key is they're going to be escorting a unit of Storm Fiends. Like, you bet your bottom dollar that's who's coming through the tunnel with them, right? And they're going to pop up 9 inches away and just do some work. Just do some work, son. Just get out the machine guns and go to town. That's what their job is.
I have never faced these guys in a game to date, and I can just see how crazy they are.
Yeah, because people are going to keep their sensitive heroes and war machines, whatever, in the back, and you're just going to drill up right behind them and put so many shots.
Yeah,
again, all the shots.
If you should be aware as a new player to Age of Sigmar, whether you're playing match play or any other play, that there, with the proximity rules for things like summoning and for these type of ambushing type units, you must have units that will deny board area. But board control is a thing. If you let these guys get too close to you, get in on you like that, you're doing it wrong. You really have to position your horde units or even just scatterings of your individual smaller units to prevent this type of shit from happening. Because they'll punish you and the game will be over. Absolutely. Who's next? You have Warlock Engineer too. Good.
Yeah, I mean, he's there because why not? Because I had 100 points.
But what's his advantage? What is he providing?
Not much is the answer. He's another little guy. He's more mortal wounds. That's the answer, because he's got his little lightning ability. So that's really, he's just, again, a little mobile mortal wound platform. And then let us not forget, I skipped over them quickly, but let us not forget up top. Oh no, the 2 Doomwheels. That's right, not 1, 2 Doomwheels. So that we can, again, more lightning, more mortal wounds, more fun times.
And the picture, of course, has 2 Doomwheels, so
I felt it was appropriate.
You need to have 2 Doomwheels, right?
Yeah, exactly. Doomwheels are not what they once were, like, certainly, but they're also quite cheap by the standards of these sorts of things, right? They're only 140 points.
So yeah, but they are considered behemoths.
Sure. Which
I think is almost a little bit of a crime, but hey, fine. They don't seem like they're that big. I mean, how many wounds are they talking about on each?
8. They've got 8 wounds. Yeah.
It just doesn't seem like they should be a behemoth, but because they're not. That's right. That's why I always say behemoth doesn't mean monster. Monster doesn't mean behemoth. More often than not, it does. This is one of those situations where they just needed to put more classifications into this list to restrict oversaturation with these types of units. Okay, I guess it works, but these things are also gonna cause fits. They're not as powerful as they used to, like you say, but they're still very effective. Keep going.
No, they're scary. They shoot out the warp lightning. I mean, again, D6 shots, not bad. It's got rend. It's doing D3 damage. You can't argue with that. Anything with rend that does D3 damage on multi shots is never going to be too bad. What I like about this thing is that what I love about the Doomwheels is that they're actually quite fast. They got that same random 2d6 move, but you can choose to run faster, right? Where you can run twice, you can move twice the distance you roll. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So I can roll 2d6 and choose to overpower it. And actually, if I roll a 7, I go 14 inches. That actually makes these quite fast. Like, there is that mystical turn where these dudes shoot forward, 22 inches, right? Because you couldn't get boxcars, because then you would have doubles and your opponent would get to move it. So I'd move 24 inches in the wrong direction. But there is that turn where you get the 6-5 and go, 22 inches out towards your opponent. And suddenly this thing is just ramming into you. I could also roll over models for free mortal wounds, which is fun. And it's actually pretty decent melee. Generates a pretty fair number of attacks. Yeah. So for an 8 wound model that doesn't get worse, it's really at 140 points. I think it's actually quite a steal.
Yeah, it's fairly resilient. You're going to have to pay attention to it, and of course that's going to differ from others. That long distance potential move. If you think you're smart and you're moving first in the turn, and you move to a point, let's say early in the game, where you're kind of taking into consideration, you don't want to overextend yourself to put yourself into a charge range by your opponent at the bottom of their of the turn when they go. These guys could foil that completely. They can play with your math completely. because they're still going to be able to get that charge in on top of that wacky movement. Yeah, they'll wind up hitting that first unit that you think is reasonably out of charge range. All right.
Yeah, this is a dirty army. Like during the shooting phase, it's so grotesque what this army does when if it's mostly in range. Like it just the amount of shots and mortal wounds and whatever that this thing puts out is just grotesque. Grotesque.
All right. Well, let's get a little bit of a final analysis here. Overall, when you're looking at facing the Skaven, when you're looking at playing the Skaven, just some thoughts on how to handle maybe some of the things that they do. What just some maybe at a high level, what kind of people should consider when they're going up against them, because they do bring a lot of different, somewhat unorthodox things to the table.
Sure. So my advice would be target priority, right? Like I talked about in all these lists, they all use sort of sneaky units you wouldn't expect to be the thing actually doing the damage. So target priority is it's an important thing in Age of Sigmar all the time, but it's especially important when targeting the Skaven. You need to know what actually poses the threat to you, because so many of their things do crazy things. You need to know, like, how susceptible am I to being mortally wounded, right? Like, if I have small 5-wound heroes that are relatively exposed, then you got to worry about things that do mortal wounds automatically, because they're going to burn those heroes right off the board, right? So it's a lot about that. Trying to control their movement, like trying to corral them. They're a very mobile army. They tend to be fast. They have lots of cheatiness in the move phase where they can retreat and charge or run and shoot, or, like they're doing all these cheaty move things. And so being able to like block them off with your units, being able to get, establish board control by actually putting your units so they can't get past you is fairly important. You need to think about like zone control a lot.
Yeah. I also I look at them as a unit. When you say deceptive, they're definitely going to try to focus your attention where you probably shouldn't be looking at it. You need to look at the scenario too, because if you're focusing just on trying to destroy them, those large quantity numbers of units will go and take those objectives, and they're swift enough that they'll get there before most armies can get there. So definitely effective in many ways, not just the lineup and let's fight, but being able to handle a variety of different scenario types.
Agreed.
All right, great. So this is the kind of format that I've been working in with these unlockings. If you have requests in the audience, if you have particular armies that you're interested in seeing, we're going to be doing more. I'm going to have you, Vince, back for doing a whole bunch more. I love that you play some of these. I wouldn't necessarily say unorthodox army types, but you tend to take the armies not just because they're the most powerful or there's a newest net list. I've seen that historically, bless you. But just because was that a sneeze or was that your dog?
That was my dog. Yeah,
okay.
She's getting impatient because she wants to go out and be fed.
All right, well, we're about to wrap up, man, so I won't keep you long. The idea, though, is if you have the audience out there that has an interest, if you have a list, send them on in. We're going to be doing more with Vince. We're probably going to be doing Tomb Kings with you, I believe. We're definitely going to be holding off to do Slaanesh with you. We'll certainly circle back to Skaven when we see all the Allegiance stuff. Before we go, what Allegiance stuff would you be putting in to customize these lists? Can you just give us that, and then we'll wrap it up?
Yeah, sure. So are you talking about from the existing stuff?
From the existing chaos, because you don't have specific Ashen or Skryre or even Skaven. We don't have that battle tome, but just from the actual chaos battle tome, what would you add on to these three different lists to enhance them? You're not going to have specialty spells, but you might have an artifact. You'll have a command trait maybe you can pick from.
Yep, sure. So for a lot of these armies, the answer is going to be things that help you with battle shock, especially with your big units, right? Because the answer is that it's tough. That can be a real hit. When you're dealing with like bravery 4 and 5 and troops that aren't that tough, battle shock can really wreck your day. So having things that protect you against those battle shock hits are a big deal.
All right, so keep an eye out for things that will mitigate some of your weaknesses. The biggest ones being your battle shock, and there you have it. We're gonna let Vince's dog go and take care of its business. Vince, thanks again for coming on board. We look forward to having you again. Check out Vince's channel. Of course, I'm sure you know it. If you know me, you know Vince. Warhammer Weekly every Wednesday night, typically around 9 o'clock Eastern, give or take, depending on the evening, with his co-host Tom. As well as just a variety of content, including various different types of how-tos. Your series on cheating, when it's not cheating in game, it's cheating in terms of how you can get better at painting and hobbying. It's helped me tremendously. And there's your tremendous for those of you who are playing the drinking game. Any last words, Vince?
Absolute pleasure as always, Mitch. And we didn't even disagree on much at all. It was just a great old time. And I'm happy to come back and do any and every army you want.
Great. Thanks so much. Have a good day, everybody.